Welcome to Mitzvah Expo, the Jewish Community Organization Showcase hosted by Rabbi Cantor Dr. Linda Bernstein.
Shalom and welcome to Mitzvah Expo, a new podcast and website showcasing the organizations and initiatives that enhance Jewish life, fight injustice, support Israel, strengthen our ties to the broader community, and more. I'm Rabbi Linda. Our goal is simple. We want you to get informed and be inspired by the work these valuable Jewish organizations do on our behalf every day. Alongside this podcast, our website at mitzvahexpo.org serves as a companion hub. There you'll find a showcase page for every organization featured on the program, with more information about their work and ways to connect with them. Today, our Mitzvah Expo featured organization is Jewish Federation Bay Area, California's largest funder of Jewish causes. I'm pleased to welcome Joy Sisisky, who serves as President and Chief Executive Officer of the Jewish Federation Bay Area. Working alongside the board, donors, and partner organizations, Joy's leadership focuses on building a thriving Jewish community in the Bay Area, Israel, and around the world. She's also active in Jewish Federations of North America initiatives addressing advocacy, antisemitism, security, and support for Israel. Jewish Federation Bay Area is the Center for Jewish Philanthropy, supporting the Jewish community locally, in Israel, and around the world. With over $2.55 billion in assets under management, the Federation awarded nearly $180 million in grants last year, spanning human services, education, advocacy, and more. Close to $75 million went directly to Jewish organizations and programs. The Federation's deep commitment to supporting Jewish life is reflected in its 4 signature programs: Diller Teen Fellows, Jewish Teen Foundation, PJ Library Bay Area, and Community Security, which serves as the trusted resource for security advice and training for over 200 organizations across Northern California. Welcome to Mitzvah Expo. I'm Rabbi Linda Bernstein, and we are honored today to have Joy Sisisky, the President and CEO of Jewish Federation Bay Area. Joy, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today with you.
Great. Well, we're very happy to have the Federation presented to us in a showcase, which is what we have on mitzvahexpo.org. We have a showcase page, and you are here to provide the direct, firsthand kind of explanation about the Federation in the Bay Area, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for the chance to do it. And as I told you before, I love seeing my colleagues on Mitzvah Expo too. It's been really fun for me to hear them talk about the work they're doing in this way. So thank you for all the great work you're doing to give us more exposure and help the community learn about our work.
And I'm learning myself as I go along. I'm finding out all kinds of things that I didn't know or misconceptions that I had. And so it's kind of a mutual benefit society here. So for those of us who may not fully understand what the Jewish Federation Bay Area is, would you describe your mission for us and why it matters today?
Well, the Jewish Federation, I'll start by saying, has been around for almost 120 years. And it's an organization that has been evolving over all that time to really try and meet the needs of the Jewish communities of the Bay Area at any given moment in time. And we really work to strengthen Jewish life, to mobilize philanthropy, and to help change makers in our community have impact that they want. So we serve as a central address and a center for Jewish philanthropy for people to think about how they want to do their giving and how they want to do it with Jewish values and how they want to give back to the Jewish community here in Israel and really beyond, and also just to the Bay Area.
So you're kind of a philanthropic conduit to the Jewish community in the Bay Area, and I will get into a little bit later how you connect to Israel and other places around the world as well. So what does the Jewish Federation of the Bay Area actually do, like on a day-to-day basis? What is kind of their, I'm asking you down, that you go get a cup of coffee or something, but, I want to find out, like, what is your overall thrust of what you do as an
I
organization?
really love this question because it's sort of twofold. What do we do as an organization? And then how does it play out every day? And that's one of the reasons I love my job so much. So I think, when we look at what we're trying to do, it's really, as I said, to mobilize the community and inspire them to think about their giving. They're giving with Jewish values and also they're giving to the community. So the Federation itself is really focused on a few key areas, including strengthening Jewish life and identity, combating anti-Semitism, and making sure our communities are safe and secure, responding to crisis, caring for people in need, and then also promoting justice and inclusion. And we raise money to do that. And that's something that the Federation has always been known for. We have an annual campaign and we rely on the generosity of donations in all sizes to really help us do that work and make grants to core partners in the community who are doing the work. In addition to all that, and we can talk about this in more detail, we manage essentially our community foundation. So about $2.5 billion in assets that are in donor advised funds and supporting foundations. And we help members of our community with their generosity. And we grant something like $175 million every year to a variety of causes, both non-sectarian and Jewish, but beyond what I just mentioned to you. So that's the overview of the kind of work that Federation does. But the day to day, one of the reasons that I love my job is because no 2 days are ever the same. So I just got back from a mission to India to bring a group of the B'nai Menashe Jewish community, which is a lost tribe of Israel, on their Aliyah. I escorted them to Israel. That's amazing. And today I'm in the office, and before I met you, I was soliciting a gift for the annual campaign. And next week we have a fly-in to Washington, D.C. Around security issues and making sure that we can solidify federal funding for nonprofit security grants in, really hundreds of millions of dollars that go across the United States. So almost every day is very different.
It sounds that way. That trip that you just recently took sounds truly amazing. You wouldn't categorize that under the Bay Area, necessarily, or think about that, but in your position, you're able to do those incredible things. So that's
Yes, and
great.
I brought a lay leader from our community who's an Indian Jew herself. And, it was a really special opportunity to think about how the Bay Area Jewish community is a part of the global Jewish people. And I think that is really core to our thinking at the Federation.
So, how would you categorize kind of where the money goes that someone would donate to the Federation? Because just in terms of like the kinds of organizations, for example, like synagogues and nonprofits, how would you group those together?
When you make a donation to the Federation's annual campaign, let's say, and we accept, like I said, gifts of all size. So we've had gifts from kids that raise money and they give us their tzedakah and it's $7, and we have people who give us $1 million. And we pool those funds to really think about the most important needs in the community. And the Federation has a set of core partners and some examples of those kinds of partners that we look to and we grant to are Jewish community centers, Jewish day schools, Hillels that are on college campuses, all of our Jewish summer camps. So we're really looking at what are the in some ways, the basic functions of a healthy and flourishing Jewish community. How do we think about Jewish education, Jewish identity building, things like that? And then, of course, and I mentioned this, security. Really, that's the way we work across actually all of Northern California with every Jewish institution, from synagogues to preschools and everybody in between. There are about 275 Jewish institutions. We do site assessments. We help them think about their physical and their cyber security, and also the emotional security. Especially in the last couple of years, the temperature has been high with the rise in anti-Semitism. So what are all the things that we can do? So when you make a gift to the Federation, you're supporting all of these things.
So, someone can earmark for a specific area, or they can just give it to the general fund, basically.
Yes. The best gifts are the one to the general fund because we have a lay committee that is comprised of community leaders and members and donors and board members to the Federation and of other places who really take a top-down view of the needs in the community, and then they allocate the funds accordingly. But we do have donors that, are specifically interested in day schools and they want to make special gifts or, gifts for scholarships to campers. So we, of course, accept that also.
And then in my discussions with some of the other guests on Mitzvah Expo, I spoke with Cindy Rogaway, who's the executive director of the Hebrew Free Loan, and she was giving me an explanation of how the Federation helped out the Hebrew Free Loan, especially during the pandemic when there was a huge surge of people in need for loans.
Yes, and she came to us, and most people come to Federation, they're looking for a grant. But what we did with Hebrew Free Loan was really revolutionary, which is we energized our donors that had donor advised funds to make a loan to Hebrew Free Loan that would be repaid over time. And then donors could recycle that. They could give it as a grant to Hebrew Free Loan. They could reinvest it in something else. They could do a lot of different things with it. But we've been trying to experiment, and we've done it successfully with all the different levers of philanthropy that we can pull to help our Jewish community. So impact investing has been core to our work as a strategy for deploying, philanthropic capital into the community. And I know you had my colleague Ty Gregory on recently too.
Yes.
And JCRC, is really a public affairs extension of the work of Federation. That's another great example of a core partner that is doing the advocacy work on the ground. And we partner with them. We support their work with philanthropic dollars. And we're always looking for different ways that we can, work together with institutions like these two that you had on recently.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you don't necessarily have to be a multimillionaire to participate in giving. You've got different methods, and that sort of was interesting to me. I was reading about the group kind of where people who have maybe small amounts of money come together for a particular cause, and they have like an event, and then that becomes like a fundraising event for that particular cause, but they do it as a group.
Yes, we have a lot of giving circles, and we think about that as how we can leverage collaborative philanthropy to make a real difference. I've been working here at the Federation for 10 years. Before I worked here, I ran the Jewish Women's Foundation in New York. And it was a giving circle. And most giving circles were actually started by women who either didn't have a lot of resources or leverage, and they wanted to pool their funds to make a difference. They do this all around the world, maybe to send one of their kids from a group to college or to be able to do something special. And this idea has really evolved now to be a tool in philanthropy that allows us to democratize in some way the process to invite anybody in. So we even have wealthy donors who do this, and they could make a grant, let's say of $100,000 to an organization. But when you do it with a group of people, your voice is stronger and you have more leverage. And it's a great way also to learn about the community and the needs of the community and do it in a fun way with friends. We've had a long time Pride Fund here in the Bay Area that's been super successful. And it's led to them even traveling to Israel for the Pride Parade and spending time together outside of the Giving Circle for Shabbat dinners. It's a real way to connect and meet people.
So you have a committee, perhaps multiple committees that make these kinds of funding decisions for the organization.
Yes.
Okay. So I have to ask you about the recent crises we've had. We've had the pandemic. We had, the October 7th, this rise in antisemitism. How has that changed the Federation's approach in any way? How do you respond when there is a crisis?
I think one of the things that I've learned, and the number of crises that you've mentioned, all have happened in the time that I've worked at the Federation. And I'm not sure that I can remember a year recently where there wasn't a crisis. And I think one of the strengths of the Federation is that it can mobilize immediately when something happens to be able to respond in whatever the way is that requires the response. So emergencies vary. So on October 7th, we woke up here on Saturday morning to learn about what was unfolding in Israel. And by noon, we had an emergency fund set up at the Federation where anybody could donate. And we partner with synagogues and the JCCs in the Hillel so that there's a central address for responding to the emergency from the community. And we raised over $25 million
Wow.
that, was sent for urgent humanitarian relief in the weeks and months after October 7th. And by the way, there's still crisis and war in Israel, and including after this last round of attacks by Iran on Israel, we were able to mobilize and immediately send $100,000 to help the victims of terror that had been impacted directly by missile attacks and were out of their homes. Um, but then they're different kinds of emergencies. Sometimes they happen a little bit farther away, including wildfires. There have been, unfortunately, wildfires here in our region in Napa and Sonoma. We've raised money and we've also sent volunteers to help organize the community in their time of need to think about rebuilding. We offer our services around capital projects. But there are also wildfires in LA, and we'll mobilize to help, Jewish communities in other places as well. But I think that the most important thing for me is how quickly Federation can move and becomes the central place for organizing around an emergency.
That's good to know. How would you categorize your current priorities? I've noticed, well, besides philanthropy, that's of course a big one, but you have some other focus areas such as children and teenagers, and I'm impressed by how you try to cover the full range of ages and needs in the community.
Over time, our work in the community has changed to reflect the needs and also growing outside philanthropy, whether it's private or from other institutions and how they're working with different populations. So today, some of the things that we're focused on, I've already mentioned security, but this is a top priority for the community, and only the Federation is working on and leading the community security program across Northern California. So this is really, um, central to our work. But we also like to think about where we can leverage national partnerships. And we do a lot of the same work that our colleagues around the country at other federations do, including, for example, our partnership with PJ Library to bring Jewish books and knowledge to families with young kids. And, my kids, when they were little, loved PJ Library books. It helps you as a family get the right kind of language to understand the holidays, to think about how to talk about being Jewish and celebrate together. And another example would be Birthright, which are trips to Israel for young adults. And now, actually, they're volunteer trips for people even older than young adults to really think about how people want to give back. We also host the Diller Teen Fellows program, which is an international program here. It's a teen leadership development program. And we have the Jewish Teen Foundation. My daughter's participating in it. She loves it. They learn about all the needs of the community in the Jewish and just the community around them, and then they raise money and they give it away. It's kind of like a giving circle for teens, and they're all graduating this Sunday. So we really try and think about how to engage different members of our community at different times in their life.
That's great. And as you were mentioning, one of your central that you call yourself like a central hub for philanthropy. And so if, let's say there's a couple out there who's approaching retirement or they're approaching toward the end of their life or something like that, or even if they're a young professional who wants to think ahead and kind of plan for the future, how do you work with individuals who want to give to the Federation?
As we've been discussing, a lot of different ways you can give to the Federation. You can make a gift to the annual campaign. You can open a donor advised fund and then recommend grants to nonprofit charities of your choice. Many of our donors open supporting foundations, which are essentially publicly run foundations, but they're doing it with family or to think about what happens after they leave, after they're no longer here. They want to maybe think about testimony gifts that are transformative that will outlive them. And they want their kids or their grandkids involved in the philanthropy, but they set it up today so that they can share their mission and their passion, and then they entrust the Federation to make sure we can see that through for them when they're not here anymore. And we do a lot of legacy giving. We just completed a really successful $250 million centennial campaign. And this is for any, and we are always soliciting legacy gifts, which are bequests that people want to make. So after their lifetime, they can continue to give to the Jewish community and be recognized. And we have a wall with people's names on it. We do a lot of events, and we remember people whose were great leaders in our community, whose shoulders we're really standing on to build the work we're doing today.
You have different awards that you give for people in the community who do special things, I guess.
Yes, we have like a distinguished kind of lifetime achievement award, the Sinton Award. We have a women's award we're giving out later this month to a really fabulous lay leader, and a young adult award. We have lots of great awards and programs, leadership development programs that you can take advantage of here.
Well, I have to ask this question. What are some of the misconceptions that you think people have about the Federation, and how can you kind of straighten their thinking out about that?
Well, I'd be curious actually for you to tell me what you think of or what you think of something and, reply. It's hard to know. I do get questions like, oh, do you still have an annual campaign? Because we focus so much on philanthropy and donor advised fund giving. And the question is absolutely yes. And in fact, our annual campaign is growing and is doing really well, but we rely on that kind of gift to make sure that we take care of the needs of the community. So yes, I think that's like a good example of something, because we've had some strategic changes over the years. They're mostly related to our underlying foundational sustainability. So the focus might be more on donor advised funds and philanthropy, but the truth of the matter is we do a lot of the same work we always have. We're just doing it in a different way. I mentioned at the beginning, we're almost 120 years old. So I would hope that the community would expect us to experiment and to try different things so that we manage to be relevant for the times that we're living in today. I think our community deserves that.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question, which is how the Federation of the Bay Area, which I know it's had different names even over time, how it's evolved over the last 120 years, and how it's different today than even it was, let's say, 5 years ago.
So when the Federation was founded, and we're one of 100 and almost 50 federations across North America, we're the fourth largest. Many of them had their roots in the same place, which were Hebrew benevolent societies. So they were created more than 100 years ago, including here in the Bay Area, so that when poor Jews who lived in San Francisco and couldn't afford to bury their dead, the community would rally to raise money to help them do that. Memorial Sinai Chapel here in the Bay Area in San Francisco is really that's like the roots of San Francisco. And the two organizations really started together, and then they evolved over time, right, to do more distinct work. So you can see that like if we wouldn't still need to do that today. So obviously you have to shift and evolve. I think in the early 2000s, especially, there was a rise in really mega private philanthropy that changed the landscape of how Jewish communities had centralized planning. And those mega foundations really changed some of the landscape here in the Bay Area. So Federation played a different role during that time than they do today. And today we're really we've been talking about focused on philanthropy and really harnessing and mobilizing that energy. There is a lot of wealth in this community. What would it take to inspire people to really think about something transformative here?
What about the national and global connection that you have? You mentioned your trip that you just took to India and Israel. I'm sure that's not something you do every day, but on the other hand, how do you kind of fit into the broader network of Jewish federations around the country? And are there also federations globally that you interact with?
So there are approximately 150 federations in North America. As I mentioned, we're the fourth largest, which is determined usually by population size. So of course, New York, Los Angeles. If you look at all of South Florida, there are many federations there. And then the Bay Area is the fourth largest community, and Chicago's a distant fifth, and it goes from there. But I meet with my colleagues in the top 19 cities that are the largest communities that are raising the most money. We meet every other week for an hour. We meet together in New York, DC, and abroad because we have a common agenda no matter where we live. The Jewish people need our help to think about security as a group, not only individually, for example, or programs that can benefit all communities. Like, what are the learnings? What are the sharings? So we spend a lot of time together with other federations. And we've always here in the Bay Area had an Israel office of the Federation. We were actually the first. Many federations now also have an Israel office, but we designate a portion of all of our fundraising and it goes directly to Israel. We have an Israel committee. They'll travel to Israel, they'll meet with our staff on the ground, and they'll determine the best needs and how we want to be in relationship with Israel today. And then we have also an overseas arm, which is the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, known as sort of JDC. They
Mm-hmm.
are essentially like the global extension of Federation in 70 countries around the world. And we also work really closely with the Jewish Agency for Israel, which I mentioned is primarily in charge of Aliyah. So even though this mission was historic and very special, the one that I mentioned to you to India and Israel, in the time that I've been here, I've done the same thing, but in Ethiopia with Ethiopian Jews that wanted to make Aliyah. So we have the chance to be connected to Jews all over the world. The last thing I'll say about this is when the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine, there are um, hundreds hundreds of thousands of Jews that are living in the former Soviet Union and in Russia and Ukraine in particular. And I had the chance to go to Poland, to go to the border at Ukraine to welcome people that were crossing over. And I'll be going back actually into Ukraine this summer to see how the Jewish community is doing. Like, we care a lot about our fellow Jews around the world. And I think it is a good expression of Jewish peoplehood to make sure that we take care of our needs at home and we think about the Jewish people worldwide.
Well, that's a mitzvah right there that we like to expose on Mitzvah Expo for sure. That we're thinking about not just ourselves, but our brothers and sisters all over the world, and even in some cases, non-Jewish uh, populations. As you were mentioning, some of your grants go to other groups in the community. So, what would make you, if someone asks you, how are you different from all other, why is this night different from all other nights? How is the Federation different from all other federations or other organizations? Because certainly one thing I've been finding on Mitzvah Expo is that there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of organizations that are concerned about anti-Semitism and take action and care about Israel. And so what is unique about your organization?
Well, I think the Federation here in the Bay Area and in every other community across North America sits in a really unique spot where there is the broadest, widest top-down view of what's happening in the community. So you had asked me earlier, for example, about crisis. And if I think about COVID, one of the things that we did immediately was put a survey out into the field of all the Jewish organizations to understand what the challenges were they were facing. And then we can use that research combined with, we've done demographic studies here for the Bay Area to put together a group of really thoughtful lay leaders from across, different organizations and communities to think about how to address this challenge for our community. So I think we're really very well positioned to have a point of view on the needs and the opportunities for our community as a whole.
For 120 years, you've been gaining experience in how to deal with all of these things, and certainly we're all benefiting from that
Yeah,
as well.
I'd like to think that.
First of all, if someone wants to get involved with the Federation in some way, whether it's financially or in some other way, do you have various volunteer opportunities and ways that they can find out more?
Yeah. Well, you can find all that out on our website, which is jewishfed.org. And of course, we have the best website address of any federation because we're here in Silicon Valley, so we
Yeah.
picked that up early. But we've talked about giving circles. It's a great way for people to get involved in not even having to commit to something really long term. We do tons of pop-up giving circles all over the place. Um, Next month, we're having a Shabbat across the bay. All you have to do is show up to Shabbat dinner at a friend's house. There are ways you can sign up. You'll find this all on our website. You can make a gift to the campaign. Some people don't have time to volunteer, but they feel like they want to participate and feel good about giving back to the community. You can open a donor advised fund. You can travel with the Federation. We have missions all the time. I think there are a lot of different things that you can do. We have wonderful leadership development programs, some of which I talked about for teens. And even sometimes when a teen gets involved, it's an opportunity for the rest of the family to get involved also.
So, are you hopeful about the future of Jewish life, and what gives you that hope?
I am only hopeful about the future of Jewish life. And, I think something that is really core to my work is the opportunity to bring Jewish joy. So it has been a hard few years, and you've mentioned and we've talked about crisis. But, the Jews and the community have persevered all these years. So for me, even though there's a lot of work that needs to be done to fight anti-Semitism, to make sure our community is safe and secure. I am so excited, especially this time of year. We're talking in May because all the kids are getting ready for Jewish summer camp. And if you went to Jewish summer camp, it is like you're living the rest of the 10 months just to go to camp for these 2 months. So the opportunity to meet Jewish friends, to have joyful Jewish experiences, and to do that with friends from around the region. I'm like super excited for camp this year.
I'm all about camp. I went to Camp Ramah, and for me, it was a wonderful experience considering, San Francisco kind of foggy summer is not much fun. And here I was suddenly exposed to Jewish life, living Jewish life. It was wonderful.
Yes.
So, as a possible recipient in some way from the benefits of that, I thank you very much because it truly changed my life. And here we are. So, again, thank you, Joy, for joining us today. Joy Sisisky, President and CEO of the Jewish Federation Bay Area. Any final words that you'd like our listeners and viewers to know about?
I'm just really happy to be here. And I've never been more proud of the Federation than I am today. And even after 10 years, as I'm sort of marking this myself, I've really seen this community and the Federation grow in so many different ways that it's a great time to be involved. And I encourage people to really think about it or rethink about it and, join us for something. Open a donor advice fund, make a gift, come learn, at one of our events. There's just so much to do. And we have a great group of lay leaders. We have a wonderful and engaged board and group of volunteers. And I hope people will feel that they're welcome and there are lots of things for them to do with us today.
That sounds wonderful. Do you have I know in the past you've had like a philanthropy day or a particular annual fund day where people come and get me on the phones and things like that. Is that still happening?
Yeah, we have our Day of Philanthropy. It's our signature event. I think it's going to take place in January or February this year, just based on our speakers' availability. But we usually do it in the fall. We had Guy Raz, who's a super popular podcaster. That was our speaker last year, and it was just amazing. It's a great place to meet other people in the community and to celebrate, all of the good work we're doing in philanthropy and learn about some of the needs in the community. So that's a great event. We have our annual event coming up. We're partnering and hosting it at Temple Emmanuel in San Francisco on June 14th. And our speaker is Jonah Platt, another popular
Oh,
podcaster. So there's always fun stuff to do.
that's that sounds amazing. Well, thank you again, Joy, for joining me today on Mitzvah Expo. And just to remind our viewers and listeners that we have a showcase page devoted to the Jewish Federation Bay Area on mitzvahexpo.org. And also, again, do give us one more time your own website as well.
jewishfed.org.
Excellent. Thank you, Joy, for joining us on Mitzvah Expo. I'm Rabbi Linda Bernstein. See you next time. My special thanks to President and CEO Joy Sisisky for joining me today and sharing the important work of the Jewish Federation Bay Area with our Mitzvah Expo audience. To learn more about the Jewish Federation Bay Area and about the other organizations featured on the program, visit our showcase pages on mitzvahexpo.org. While you're there, we invite you to join the Mitzvah Expo community so you can stay up to date on future programs, featured organizations, and events. We invite you to also share a mitzvah you've done in your own life or community. Your good deed may inspire others and help highlight the many ways people can make a difference. You can listen to Mitzvah Expo on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and listen or watch on YouTube, and of course at mitzvahexpo.org. If you enjoyed the program, please follow or subscribe so more people can discover the inspiring work happening across the Jewish community. And we'd love to hear from you. Please write to me at rabbilindabernstein@gmail.com with your comments and suggestions for future featured Jewish organizations. Get informed, be inspired. For Mitzvah Expo, I'm Rabbi Linda Bernstein.
You've been listening to Mitzvah Expo. Learn more at mitzvahexpo.org.
Mitzvah Expo is a production of Vita Media Corporation.